Cheers.
Cheers.
So it's good seeing you.
Yeah, you too, man.
So this is your local spot?
This is my local spot, actually. It's on the way to the kids' school, so in the morning, on the way or on the way back, I get a coffee.
So probably just like start from the start. So how did you start into being assistant to Digi and then eventually become a product designer?
I've come full circle because I was initially studying engineering in Buenos Aires. I did a year of that, and so not much. And then I decided I wanted to become a photographer. So I moved to Europe because I had Danish citizenship, and there wasn't really a future in photography in Argentina at the time. And so then I studied in London art, and I had a friend of mine who at the time was Jürgen Teller's assistant. But I was working at a restaurant after uni, and he was like, "Man, why don't you go work in a studio?" I was like, "Oh, right." So he pointed me to Big Sky, and I remember walking into Big Sky and just going like, "Wow, this is like Hollywood." I didn't know there were such big studios, that this existed at this level. And I was lucky enough to start working as a studio assistant there for 75 quid for 12 hours on a freelance basis.
But earning every penny.
Earning every penny, but it was a lot of fun. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about technical things. I learned a lot about how to deal with big egos and creative people. I learned how to be a creative as well. It was fantastic, and from then on I kind of went on to meeting photographers at the studio and slowly starting to assist, third assistant, second assistant, until I ended up working with Mariano Iwan for a few years as his first assistant full time. He's a good friend now. That was a lot of fun. Very intense. He can be like a very intense guy, but he's super nice. So I'm grateful for those years. Where was I? Yeah, so that was great. And then from then on, I went to work at D-Touch and do a bit more Digi. That's when I started working with Paolo Roversi. And well, then I left and started my own company. Last year I made the shades, the carbon fiber shades for the iPad for myself, and that kind of triggered a newfound passion for designing products, and well, here we are, man.
So you mentioned that you hand draw a lot of the designs for the products before you actually bring them into CAD or into Rhino and properly develop them and design them. And do up the drawings. So how do you try and keep the kind of the human lines in those technical drawings?
Well, whenever there's curves, I'll do them by hand. And I'll do a lot of drawing, erasing. I'll try and do it in one shot. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you have to erase a bit and do it again, and but at the end of the day, you're getting a more organic, more imperfect curve, and the eye picks up on those things. The eye will pick up on that. The eye is very discerning. So when people look either at images or at colors or at shapes or forms, the back of your mind, your subconscious is reading so much into it. So when something is made by computers or made by AI going forward, you will know. You will know.
What has been one of the more enjoyable shoots that you've been on over your time?
I think there's been a lot of fun shoots, but I used to travel a lot to LA, to New York. That was great. But I think one of the best moments was the first time I worked with Paolo. And, I loved his work. And his studio in Paris is such an inspiring place. It smells of photography. It's like the floors, you can almost smell the Polaroids. He stopped shooting Polaroid a long time ago, but you can almost smell the chemicals in the studio. And, so he was doing his thing. He did the first shot, and just seeing the first image come in was like watching magic. it was like I imagine the first time someone, you know, actually made a photograph in the 19th century, like Fox Talbot or Nipsey, seeing that image appear before them for the first time.
Yeah.
I think that's how it felt. It was a magical moment,
Yeah.
you know. Paolo just does magic with what he does.
Do you have images from that first shoot, from that first moment?
Yeah, definitely. I've got the magazine back at home. Yeah, there's few moments, you know, because normally we're shooting what's in front of us, but somehow Paolo just makes magic.
Hold the light, toe the line, feel my warm tears. Does anybody really know me? Throw my name.
So talk to me about your first product, or the prototype of your first product.
My first product was the Carbon Shady. This time last year, on a shoot in Lanzarote or Tenerife, one of the Canary Islands, and we were a couple of photo teams. We all had our iPads mounted, and all of us had these crappy cardboard shades. So when I came back from that job, I was like, there must be a better way of doing it. So I thought of, you know, matte boxes in the film industry. They use sort of carbon fiber flaps. It's a lightweight material. It looks cool, does the job. So why not, you know, try and do it? So the first prototype I made, I bought some carbon fiber on Amazon. I went to a friend's workshop. He's a jeweler and has a diamond saw. So I cut it myself, then I drilled the holes, you know, put it together, and that was the first prototype of the Carbon Shady.
So when did the one for the EZO come out then?
I have no idea. Probably around September last year. You know, that was also solving a problem I had on set, which was kind of when you had the ISO vertical, you couldn't have a shade on it, and in several shoots, several situations, that had been a problem. So I wanted to make the shade just like I did it for the iPad. I think this was probably one of the first I made. So with a double hinge system that you can go on portrait and landscape. So
because I was going to ask, like, what's the difference between your one and the one that you get in the box when you buy the EZO? So was the Pantera Plate one of the more challenging products to create?
Definitely. I spent about 8 months between design, prototyping, different manufacturing techniques, even to find a manufacturer that could do that level of detail on CNC wasn't easy. And then a manufacturer that could do that level of detail in CNC with small runs and at a decent price was even harder. But I finally found one in Germany, so that was great.
And did the teeth ever kind of like bite into the cable, like and kind of damage it slightly, or?
It never really damaged the cable, but it wasn't gripping properly, or it was leaving a few little marks. So it, you know, I had to play a lot with the angle of the teeth, the thickness of the teeth, the roundness of the teeth. So there was
very fine line.
there was a lot of 3D printed prototypes in the beginning to get it right.
One of those there,
And you know, then there was kind of a more industrially made plastic 3D print, but then because it's quite thin, you have this flexibility that doesn't work for a tripod plate. Then there was the aluminium 3D print, which is just horrible. It has a horrible finish. You know, this is the raw aluminium. It could be finished black anyway, but it's just like it's horrible.
Yeah.
Then there was another prototype that didn't have some internal design features to kind of help with the strength of the plate overall.
Yeah.
And then there was the final prototype, which just worked.
Yeah,
And it's such a beautiful moment when you, after 8 months of doing different designs, prototypes, and very fine adjustments, you finally get it right.
Yeah.
And after all that time, there's a magical moment when you put it up on your website for sale and you go like, okay, here we go. Let's see if anyone's interested in this.
Yeah.
It's a huge risk, right?
Yeah.
And you have them all sitting there looking at you.
Yeah. And you know, I couldn't. Usually I do quite small runs of things, but this one had to be a big one in order for it to be cost effective.
Yeah.
So I made a lot of them.
Yeah.
But it seems like the work is paying off.
How does it feel when it's gone from paper into digital drawings and then into maybe the physical product that you've printed? Is there always like critiques, or has there ever been a time where it's like, oh, that's actually turned out a lot better than I expected?
I think it's actually quite a frustrating process because I'm not an engineer. I don't know CAD or Rhino as well as I know Photoshop or Capture One. So it takes me probably hours to do something that it would take a professional 1 hour to do. And then, the measurements are slightly off, so you have to print and reprint. But I mean, it's amazing that we can do these things at such small scale at home with a 3D printer. I think if you told me when I was a kid that I'd be able to print things, like I wouldn't have believed it. It's amazing.